This is Digital Marketing Depot, broadcasting live. I'm Karen Burka, your webinar producer. Thank you for joining us today on Valentine's Day for 5 Disruptions, Reshaping Marketing as We Know It. We are very pleased to welcome Scott Brinker, the editor of ChiefMarTech.com, program chair of the MarTech Conference, and co-founder and chief technology officer at Ion Interactive. Scott is also editorial advisor on Third Door's newest MarTech report on B2B marketing automation platforms, A Marketer's Guide. He's a very busy man. Before I turn the webinar over to Scott, I want to tell all of you a couple of things. If you need some help, just use the Ask a Question box, and we will do our best to help you. If you want to tell a friend, check out our sponsor, MarTech or Digital Marketing Depot. There are some widgets at the bottom of your screen. Just click on them, and they will take you where you want to go. Now, we are going to hear a lot of great content today. Essentially, we are getting an online keynote address. So I wanted to let you know we are recording this broadcast, and we will make it available for viewing on demand. I'll send an email when it's ready. With that business taken care of, let me make a more formal introduction. Scott Brinker is the co-founder and chief technology officer of Ion Interactive, a platform for creating and testing post-click experiences. Scott has been chronicling the emergence of marketing as a technology-powered discipline for nearly 10 years at ChiefMarTech.com. He's also the program chair of MarTech, the largest vendor-agnostic conference for marketing technology professionals. So with that, I will turn the webinar over to Scott Brinker to get us started. And Scott, there's your first slide.
Great. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day. I assume we're all here because we love marketing. I love marketing technology. So we will get started here. If you want, you'll see in the lower right corner here my Twitter ID at ChiefMarTech. So I won't be able to engage with you while we're doing this, but if you have things you want to shout out at me, I will definitely follow up with you afterwards as well. So thank you for that introduction. Yes, I do wear a fair number of hats in one form or another related to fun things happening in marketing technology. I'd like to say I live, eat, breathe, sleep marketing technology. But the part of that I'm particularly excited about here is we're coming up in a few months here with the MarTech conference. It will be in San Francisco, May 9th through 11. And if you find the content of today's webinar right up your alley, this mix of marketing, technology, and management, this is really the event you will want to attend. I will be just one of over 100 speakers of major brands across B2B, B2C, covering really the latest and greatest topics at this intersection. Over 70 presentations, over 100 exhibitors and sponsors. And I will mention this again when we get to the end of this webinar, but if you're interested in coming to MarTech, please register within the next 2 weeks. At the end of next week, the super early bird, or what we call the alpha price, will expire. So this is your chance to save $400. Now, one of the other things I'm known for is being the guy who curates this crazy landscape of nearly 4,000 marketing technology vendors. This is the graphic from last year. And in case you're wondering, I am working on the 2017 version of this. We won't talk about it much now, but I will give you a little spoiler alert. It hasn't gotten any smaller. You know, if there's a testament to how much I personally love MarTech, I think it has to be the passion for moving around 4,000 little logos on a single page. But the truth is, I mean, what gets me so excited about marketing technology, it's not the technology itself. You know, it is really that all of these tools, all of this innovation that is happening from so many of these different companies is really opening up a new set of possibilities for marketing as a profession. And that's what we're really going to focus on in today's webinar, is if we step back from, the individual disruptions that we hear about every week, right? Disruption is become the word du jour. There's not a week that goes by. There's some new disruption happening in the marketing space. But if we try and step back a bit, try and get up to that, 10,000-foot level, I would argue there are actually 5 major disruptions that are reshaping the way we think about marketing, the way we practice marketing. And we will go through all 5 of them in today's webinar. So getting started, the first massive disruption is really this phrase that we've heard over and over again called digital transformation. And I'd like to put this in a little bit of context. So as you well know, right? I mean, there's so much to learn in digital marketing. No one knows it all. We're constantly in a process of learning new things, developing our practices, gaining experience. But what's fascinating is, if you look at the marketing profession as a whole, if you look at what different companies are doing with their digital marketing, you see this very widely distributed and very skewed distribution of how sophisticated individual businesses are. Right now, a number of you are probably, in the middle here, these digital marketers. You're using this technology, you're using it effectively. Maybe a number of you are also what I would call digital transformers, a little bit further along that curve. Well, it's not just about using digital marketing technology, but it's leveraging this technology to actually change the way the entire business has a relationship with its prospects and customers. Surely there's lots of other businesses that are further behind on the curve still. A lot has happened here in the past 10 years, and a lot of companies are still trying to catch up. That's okay. It's, all about just moving forward along that curve. But one of the things I find really fascinating is over the past year, I've looked at a set of companies that are really at the farthest end of that spectrum. These digital natives, right? They're companies like Amazon and Netflix and Uber and Airbnb, companies where their entire existence has come into being in a digital environment, that everything the company does really is, driven through a digital experience. And so in some way, I would argue that these digital natives, they represent the far end of the spectrum of digital marketing sophistication. The way in which they incorporate digital marketing, quite frankly, into the very fabric of their own products and services. I think this is something that the rest of us can actually look at and learn a lot about, be inspired about how these companies are operating really full steam in a digital environment. It's interesting because when we look at these companies who are the digital natives, one of the things we notice is, well, 2 things. One is a lot of their marketing, if I can put that word in quotes for a moment, is actually driven by the experience of the digital product or service itself. In fact, this is where the term growth hacking originally came from, is companies like LinkedIn that were actually using changes to the experience inside LinkedIn to drive growth and adoption in their service. And that's kind of fascinating, right? Pretty much all of us in marketing have been hearing over the past few years a sort of growing drumbeat for marketers to be focused on customer experience, right? That the brand in a world of search and social media and public reviews and things like that, our brands are very much driven by the experiences that our customers have. So naturally, us as marketers, if we want our brand to do well, we've become increasingly concerned about how do we make sure we're giving people really great customer experiences. But again, what's fascinating here is for these digital natives, they certainly recognize that, but it's not usually the marketing department that controls those experiences. It is the actual core product team itself. And so I think this represents an interesting dichotomy that we're coming to, as the scope of marketing continues to grow. There are questions as to, will the marketing department continue to own a larger and larger percentage of the customer experience mission, which is certainly what we see in a lot of these companies who are going through digital transformation now. Like, it's not unusual, for instance, to have a chief digital officer, usually the champion of this transformation, who reports to the CMO. But there's certainly this other scenario we see with many of these digital natives where the marketing team, it certainly has a relationship with the product team on customer experience, but marketing has sort of gone back to more of its focus on communication services, and the product team has really taken over responsibility for that sort of growth hacking dimension of the product itself. Now, I'm not going to say here to argue one way or the other that, one approach is better than the other. And these are kind of just, 2 points on a curve. There's any number of, various possibilities along this continuum. But the point that I really want to drive home to you is that this digital transformation mission is bigger than the scope of classic marketing. And so us as marketing leaders, we really need to be prepared to navigate where our particular company is headed. How are we going to handle this growing integration of more and more customer experience responsibilities for what marketing provides? Now, just one model to keep in mind. This whole customer experience explosion, in some ways, it is very much about everything an organization does, right? Not just its core marketing, but its sales experience, its customer service experience, its product experience, in many cases, right? Even things like, how is billing handled, the financial side of it. All of these things contribute to the larger marketing impact a brand has. And so I sometimes think of this as almost like the democratization of marketing, that really every function inside a business is going to have to be aware and cognizant of how its activities, its engagements, its touch points with our customers impact the quote-unquote marketing of the organization. What's fascinating to me is this idea of marketing being democratized reminds me a bit of what happened here with IT. For a long time, right? IT was, sequestered entirely within the IT department. But over the past 10 years, particularly in marketing, actually, we've seen this democratization of technology. That really every group inside a company has ownership of a shared responsibility of its part of technology, the tools that it's using to execute its mission. And what's interesting there is to see how in different companies the relationship with IT has evolved, where IT isn't necessarily the sole owner of all technology, but in a number of companies has become almost like the senior hub of governing technology, empowering different teams to be able to leverage their own tools, but to really be able to do so under the guidance and the governance of an IT team. And so what might be fairly interesting to think about is this digital transformation mission moves forward is the opportunity for marketing to say, okay, well, we aren't going to control every single touch point that we have with the customer because, there's just thousands of them, right? It's all throughout the organization. But what we are going to do is we are going to help to coordinate and govern all of those touch points through the mission of delivering remarkable, compelling customer experiences at every stage of the customer's life cycle. So very exciting stuff happening here in digital transformation. This isn't just a buzzword. As businesses are transforming the way they have digital engagements with their prospects and customers, marketing has a really great opportunity to help architect how this is going to operate inside your particular business. The digital transformation, it's definitely bigger than marketing. I think there's some interesting inspiration we can take from how digital natives operate today. We may or may not choose to follow that model, but there's certainly some inspiration to be found. A lot of this really comes down to the recognition that digital transformation is about delivering customer experience through digital touch points that get integrated into our very product and service. And by that nature, that's software that's powering all of that, and that this really does become one of our most effective marketing channels. This is what we see as the growth role in digital natives. Who will lead that customer experience mission? Will it be the CMO? Will it be someone from the product team? Will it be a new chief experience officer? These are questions you need to focus on the answer to over the next year within your own organization. So the next step of this is, as we see this incredible digital transformation, which is largely about, at a technical level, software eating the world, as Mark Andreessen famously said. Software is allowing this digital transformation to happen in everything we're doing in our organizations. So I want to get a little bit technical for a moment in how the architecture that's enabling this digital transformation is changing, because it has a tremendous number of implications for how we think about marketing's technical capabilities moving forward. So we know there's thousands of marketing technology products out there, but the really fascinating thing to watch is how marketers, particularly over the past several years, have turned that smorgasbord of marketing technology choices out there into incredibly powerful marketing stacks of their own. If you haven't yet taken a look at the Stackies, which is an awards competition we run at the MarTech conference every year, you can do a Google search for MarTech Stackies, and you'll be able to download nearly 60 of these diagrams that marketers at different organizations, B2B, B2C, have put together, explaining how they think of their marketing technology engine, their marketing technology stack. Not just which particular products do they use, although that's certainly interesting too, but how they think of fitting these different products together into a fabric that operates their unique set of marketing capabilities, that helps them fulfill their marketing strategy the way they think about it. So definitely, when you have a chance, download those decks. They're for free up on SlideShare. Really a lot to be learned there. The most recent report from Walker Sands, who has now done several years in a row here, the study of how the state of marketing technology is evolving, their most recent report provided some more evidence that this phenomenon is not limited just to companies who enter into the Stackies, but that overall integrated best-of-breed architectures have really taken the lead. That more companies use this best-of-breed approach of picking the different technologies that they want and assembling them together into their own kind of unique secret sauce, of how these pieces fit together as their way to execute modern marketing. And what's interesting from that Walker Sands report is it's not just that people are using a lot of these, best-of-breed architectures. It's that these best-of-breed architectures are actually having the highest performance. They impact, better, even than those folks who are using like a single vendor suite that in theory could have everything architected together. Those who are able to really leverage an integrated best-of-breed architecture are getting even more juice out of their technology stack. One of the reasons this is becoming more and more possible is because all of those marketing technology vendors have really put a lot of effort over these past couple years to make it easier for these different pieces to connect together, to fit together. So very often, right, the major platforms have ecosystems of third-party developers. They've opened up their APIs. They have very good ISV programs. But also, there's a whole category now on this MarTech landscape of these cloud integration services, right? You may have seen things like If This Then That, IFT, or Zapier, that allows you to just very easily plug together different components and different software from these different providers and very easily start to share data between them, to start to orchestrate logic and triggers of, okay, when this happens over here, we want this other thing to happen over there. That this is getting easier and easier as we go along. And so for those of us in marketing, we've kind of had a new word enter our, or acronym, I guess, a new acronym enter our vocabulary recently, this idea of APIs. The APIs being the things that allow these different software programs to talk to each other. And a recent study by the CMO Council of CMOs found nearly half of them were already very well versed on the potential that APIs had to connect these different components together in their own marketing technology capabilities, to also use it to create their own services. It's fascinating actually to see this distribution, that there's over half are very well versed on APIs. They're using APIs in their marketing systems, and then you've got the other half that there's a set of people who are like, wait, what's an API? So it goes back to that distribution curve that some of us are further along than others. But it's interesting to see where this is going. Right, all these different software components starting to connect together more easily, talk to each other more easily. This diagram here shows at a very, very high level this evolution of IT architectures over the past 40 years, right? The block on the left used to be the big mainframe. Everything ran in the mainframe. Then in the 80s, we started to get into client server. So you had software on the client machines and then software on the server. And then in the 2000s, the classic three-tier web architecture, presentation layer, application layer, data layer, where the presentation layer was the web browser, right? That really became, the de facto architecture for so many of these applications. But now you start to get into this decade, on this right here, in this sort of cluster of blocks, as the cloud has really started to take over, that all of these different services, not just in marketing, but really in every business function, are now available on demand in the cloud. They're accessible via APIs. You have these integration services that we talked about, like Zapier and if this then that. All of a sudden, we're starting to see this new architecture emerging that's very often called a microservices architecture, where you're able to configure all of these different pieces largely on demand to put together very unique capabilities as you want them. There's a company that operates in that space called MuleSoft. They're one of the leaders, and they have some really great decks, that describe this microservices architecture that has really been taking off like wildfire in IT circles. And I love this slide of theirs that really emphasizes by moving to this idea of microservices, instead of thinking about just one big monolithic app, like, okay, we're going to have our big monolithic marketing app and it does everything. Instead, we start to think of marketing as being served by a whole collection of small services that can each evolve independently as fast as needed, that they can be coupled to each other, linked to each other, just enough to create business value, and that most importantly, they're optimized for change. That moving to this microservices architecture really gives us an opportunity to be more adaptable. We're not stuck, by the evolutionary speed of a single massive application. And so this microservices approach has really gained tremendous traction, quite frankly, in the broader digital transformation movement. But the opportunities for us in marketing to leverage this are incredible. I included this slide. You can get this online from Nanoscale.io. It gives you a little sense of the ecosystem of all the different vendors that are helping to facilitate these microservices architectures. And I want to emphasize, this isn't just an IT thing. This now becomes the new way we start to think about marketing architectures. In fact, there's a great presentation by one of the digital natives, Tony Ralph, who's the director of ad technology at Netflix, You can actually, on YouTube, he gave a great presentation at MarTech a couple years ago describing how Netflix thinks about that sort of microservices architecture inside their marketing team for how they are able to, on demand, connect their own proprietary systems with commercial off-the-shelf marketing technology to really, on demand, be able to deliver very unique, very customized marketing experiences. And if you want to get into a little bit more of the tech about this, I'd highly recommend Netflix has a blog for their engineering. I think it's engineering.netflix.com, that they actually openly talk a lot about their microservices architecture and how it powers really all aspects of the company, from the product and service itself, through to some of what Tony talked about on the advertising and marketing side. See, the thing that gets really cool about these microservices and APIs is it's not just about how we connect all the pieces together internally. But part of the mission with digital transformation is ways that we're able to expose digital services to other customers that we might actually choose to make our APIs available publicly. We might choose to use the APIs from other businesses, from partners, from potential collaborators, and orchestrate that into our marketing technology capabilities as well. There's just been an incredible explosion of these APIs. And one of the things that Amazon, who is clearly a leader, in this microservices architecture, they have a microservices architecture that powers their entire service. One of the things that Jeff Bezos, over 10 years ago, really emphasized that when they moved to that microservices architecture, it wasn't just about helping the different business components to fit together easily and adapt to each other easily. But that was really important to make sure any one of those services could also be made available to the outside world. And this is a lot of inspiration for what we can do with broader digital transformation and where we start to see the future of marketing going. So this microservices architecture, one of the things that really makes this feasible now inside marketing departments is this incredible growth of the profession of marketing technologists, people who have just enough of the technical background, well, in some cases a lot of technical background, but even those who have just enough to really be able to leverage these tools, connect them together, understand how the different data pieces, the different data pipes fit together, and use that to create a very unique marketing technology set of capabilities for your business. So marketing technologists, certainly on the rise. An interesting point on the curve here is this isn't just happening in marketing. This is happening throughout the rest of the organization. In fact, the term that we've started to hear more and more about from analysts such as Forrester and Gartner is this idea of citizen developers. That some of these tools, some of these technologies, things like Zapier, for instance, you don't have to be a programmer to put together a little unique piece of logic that says, oh, I want to take the data from this application, move it to this other one, and then trigger these 3 events. You can actually do that through an interface. And yeah, this is the rise of citizen developers that give us a lot more flexibility throughout the entire organization. Now, there's one side note associated with this that I just want to plant this seed in your head as far as, disruption underway within the marketing landscape is I'm a strong believer that the more software developers you get working in a field, the more open source software you're going to end up with in that field. I would argue this is just a law of the universe. And it's fascinating that for a long time, quite frankly, most software developers weren't explicitly working in marketing. It kind of, the developer world was somewhat, philosophically different than the marketing world. But, going back to that digital transformation, looking at those digital natives where these really cool digital products are so entwined with what marketing is and what the marketing mission is now, you're actually seeing a lot of developers working on marketing missions, these customer experience missions. And so I think one of the things that's going to do is it will introduce more and more open source into the marketing stack. I mean, overall, the use of open source in organizations has grown exponentially over the past decade. There's a group, Black Duck, that every year does a study of why companies are adopting more and more open source. And it's not just about the price, it's about competitive features. It's about freedom from vendor lock-in. It's about the quality of the solutions that are available. So we're definitely seeing open source throughout other areas of the organization. And frankly, even in marketing, there's a few places where we see open source having a tremendous impact. Now, one of them is web content management. In the most recent Gartner study of the web content management space, one of the top 3 leaders in the web content management space is Acquia, which is based on open source solution Drupal. This was also confirmed here just earlier this month. The folks at Forrester released their study of web content management systems. And again, Acquia comes up as like one of the top 3 vendors in this space. And so particularly when you talk to people who are in the web development mission, and very often this gets tied into what we're doing in marketing, a study by Forrester found that nearly half of them are now using some kind of open source, whether it's in their web content management platform or perhaps even in the client-side libraries they're using, for JavaScript, for the interface. They're choosing open source because it gives them greater flexibility and, quite frankly, because it gives them more innovation from the community. The fact that it's often cheaper than commercial software is third on the list. So very exciting to see where this open source movement is going. There are other open source solutions across the marketing tech landscape. Most of them don't have the same momentum that we yet currently see with web content management, but I would definitely keep an eye on where this is headed. So open source, microservices, API, this is really disrupting the way we think about the architecture of marketing technology stacks, what they make possible, and quite frankly, how they better support that larger digital transformation mission. All right, third disruption, vertical competition. We hear a lot about this talk of walled gardens. Facebook is like the classic example of, all right, well, what happens in Facebook stays in Facebook, or maybe should stay in Facebook, right? But, Facebook has access to a tremendous amount of data that they control around those experiences of the audience. So marketers are engaging through Facebook. They have only a limited access to that based on what Facebook controls. And this is actually a great example of this fascinating dynamic of vertical competition. So what do I mean by vertical competition? In the digital world, we've long thought of digital as being this kind of direct relationship between the marketer and consumer, right? Because the communications, the connection from the marketer to the consumer, they can happen in real time, be transferred over the internet in a matter of microseconds. But the truth is, this is not a direct relationship. It actually passes through a number of different stages, depending on, the particular connection you're having with someone, the particular digital touch point. You might be working with a service provider who's helping to manage it. You might be using a particular piece of MarTech or ad tech software. In turn, that might be interfacing to these internet services like Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Google. And then beyond that, you've also got the client interfaces, which have classically been things like web browsers, that the end user is actually using. And so all of this software, impacts the relationship between the marketer and the consumer. And if you want evidence of that, look no further than all the craziness that has happened around ad blockers. An ad blocker is like a great example of how installing a piece of software at that client interface stage of this channel changes the competitive dynamics of everything else up and down that channel, the relationship between how the marketer actually can or cannot reach that consumer. And so vertical competition is the jostling between providers at these different stages in the channel. It is, Facebook perhaps having, as an internet service, having more power in how connections to a consumer is made than, say, a particular ad tech solution, that is being used to try and manage placements of advertising within Facebook. Now, when we think of competition traditionally, what we normally think of is horizontal competition. That means for any one of those layers or stages in that channel, we think about the competitors within that stage. So right in the MarTech world, we think about, it's Adobe versus Salesforce versus Oracle. Or in the internet, it's, like Google versus Facebook. What's fascinating, though, is you start to see in this vertical competition space, the power between those, the power struggle between horizontal competitors, like, for instance, say Adobe and Oracle, in some ways isn't as nearly as disruptive as the power struggle between companies like, say, Adobe and Facebook. Who really is going to have the most value to offer marketers over the way in which they engage with their audience? One of the things I find really fascinating in looking at the landscape, through those vertical and horizontal competitive dimensions, is you will see that there are 4 companies that have really amassed stakes, offerings in every single one of those key 3 stages. Alphabet, Google's parent company here, right? Google has offerings in MarTech, like DoubleClick, Google Analytics 360 Suite. They obviously have their own internet services, YouTube, Google. They, of course, have client interfaces, web browsers like Chrome, but also new interfaces like Google Home. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Amazon, has, stakes in every single one of these stages. In fact, actually just today, as we're recording this webinar, Amazon announced Chime, which is a new video conferencing solution. So for video conference providers, in the MarTech space, Amazon is now competing with them. But Amazon also has some unique assets, obviously with, Amazon.com, and then really interesting new client interfaces, things like Amazon Alexa or the Amazon Dash button. So if we look at these 4 companies, Alphabet, Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, that all have ownership stakes across all of these stages in that vertical competition stage, I don't think it's any coincidence that those are 4 out of the 5 largest companies in the world today. That this jostling between competitors in vertical competition is really such a strategically important aspect, for us to be thinking about as marketers when we start to plan out how are we going to reach and optimize the relationship with our audiences in this new environment. So definitely, the worst thing that could ever happen to you is to have a competitor who you think today is competing with you in a horizontal way somehow be able to have a unique stake somewhere further down that vertical chain where they can intercept your customers or intercept the relationship. For instance, like every single retailer in the world should be really frightened about things like Amazon Alexa, that when I just now have this interface, in my living room, that Amazon is able to control the answers that it gives, the services it offers, at that client interface level. Which leads us into this next disruption, what I call digital everything. All right, so hold on to your butts here. This crazy MarTech landscape that we know and love. Okay, well, we know. It's Valentine's Day, a little bit of love for the MarTech landscape. To just step back for a moment, the vast majority of the applications and vendors on that landscape are really just focused on web, and mobile app interfaces for marketers to their audience. What's not on there is this incredible array of new kinds of digital touch points. For instance, I don't have a category on the landscape for wearables and all the wearable apps that are starting to be developed as new ways to have a touch point with a particular customer. Amazon Alexa, right? I mean, Amazon Alexa now has over 1,000 of these skills that brands are able to develop to plug in so that, conversational computing, people can just ask requests, hey, Alexa, can you get me a Domino's pizza? No problem, right on the way. This is a whole new set of interfaces that, again, going back to digital transformation, it's not just about classic marketing communications. It's about how do we digitize our very service, our very product, to create a better relationship with our customers. Things like Alexa, or for that matter, its competitor, Google Home, are providing these new kinds of channels that we really have to think of as a marketing opportunity. And it's not just using these things, quite frankly, for us engaging with our customers. We're now starting to see these conversational computing interfaces actually help us as marketers. The folks at Datorama a few weeks ago announced an Alexa skill that interfaces to their MarTech product. Lets you, if you have an Amazon, Echo in your boardroom, you can just ask questions like, hey, well, what were our campaign statistics, last quarter? How did these two different, drip campaigns, how did their conversion rate compare? And it's able to reach out, find that data, and just give you the answer. That's going to be really exciting as we start to see that spread further throughout the marketing tech vendor community. Another set of touch points here are the keyboard-based, computer-based chatbots. Whole explosion of chatbots now available in Facebook Messenger or more on the B2B side within Slack. In fact, there's a whole category in Slack for marketers of really cool chatbots that you can install and use. I figured I'd highlight just one of them for you. If you haven't tried this yet, there's a great one that Dharmesh Shah, who's the CTO of HubSpot, put together called GrowthBot. And it's free. You can just go ahead and you can install it on Slack or Facebook Messenger. And you can use it to ask all sorts of questions of, hey, how much are my competitors spending on, pay-per-click, and who's got this SEO ranking for these keywords? A lot of actually, when did they register these domains? All sorts of things that you have questions for. They come up, and now you can just ask GrowthBot, and it comes back to you with the answer. Again, what's exciting here is, GrowthBot, well, because it's developed by Dharmesh, right, it also interfaces to HubSpot. It interfaces to Google Analytics. So this becomes a new way for you to ask questions using English language queries, and have the software figure out what the answer is for you and get it right back to you. Very exciting stuff. So where were we, right? We're all the things that aren't on the marketing technology landscape, right? I barely cover anything around virtual reality and augmented reality. There's a whole collection of innovations that are happening there. This is the virtual reality LumaScape by my good friends at Luma Partners. The Internet of Things, oh my goodness, right? This embedding, of digital connections into our products of every kind, both in, industrial and business marketing, but also consumer marketing, right? This becomes a whole new set of touch points as well, too. Again, largely not represented on the marketing tech landscape today. I don't even have categories for delivering billboard ads by drones to consumers, which is apparently becoming somewhat of a hot thing too. This actually happened. Uber actually had these drones deliver these billboards to commuters in Mexico City. So it's a wild and wonderful world we live in. So this disruption, all these different new kinds of digital touch points, the ultimate disruption this has to how we think about marketing and marketing technology is we need to step back and look at how these pieces fit together. a lot of digital marketing organizations, right, got started around the website, right? I mean, we were building websites, so we had a web team, that knew things like, front-end design for websites and back-end systems, content management systems. Then as email started to really ramp up and marketing automation, right? We had a team that would manage, our email and marketing automation platforms. Then as social rose, okay, we develop a social team, and they understand the different social platforms and they use social marketing tools to engage with them. Okay, that's good, but now we need a mobile app. Okay, so we go out and we find a team that can build a mobile app for us. What's interesting is, again, I mean, each one of these teams have largely been separate from each other. They've been their own little separate silo inside the digital marketing organization. And even with just these four, things were starting to get a little bit challenging. There's this effort of trying to rethink, the holy grail of, omni-channel marketing is to start to step back and think about how do we connect the threads between these. But this was just the beginning, right? Because now we have things like chatbots, whether it's, Amazon Alexa and Google Home or, Slack and Facebook Messenger, wearable apps, VR and AR, how Internet of Things is going to be embedded in our products. The list goes on and on. We can't have a separate silo for every single one of these. So this transformation of digital everything is for us as marketers to really step back and instead of talking about, mobile first, for instance, to start to think more about service first, data first. What is the unique service offering we want to give our prospects and customers? And when we have that vision, how do we orchestrate these different channels and touch points to execute that? We'll still have specialists within these different touch points. There is something that is still somewhat different about, building a great VR application versus a chatbot versus a website, but that there should be more common foundation than there is the sort of differentiated, experience at the very end, at the very top of that pyramid. So as we move forward over this next 12, 24 months, really starting to think about just digital everything, that it isn't just about the web browser anymore. Web is still going to be important, but we need to think about how we develop these service-first and data-first architectures to support the broader marketing mission. All right, we're almost to the end. And of course, how can we have a 5 disruptions to marketing webinar without talking about artificial intelligence? In many ways, to me, artificial intelligence is most exciting in the way that it pairs with digital everything. All these new touch points and interfaces that we have with our prospects and customers. This is one of my favorite cartoons by Tom Fishburne, the Marketunist. If you don't follow him, you should. The guy's just hilarious. In fact, actually, Tom will be one of our speakers at MarTech, and I think he might even have a MarTech-specific cartoon in the works or something. So anyway, just a little bonus on that. All right, so wow, artificial intelligence. You can't, turn to a web publication these days, a newsletter, without seeing this, come on your, come up in a headline. There is a phenomenal amount happening. I'm a big fan of landscapes with logos. This is actually one that's maintained by a group at Bloomberg Beta, Machine Intelligence. You can download it to, get a readable version. But you can just see there's this incredible explosion of innovation, of companies offering really breakthrough technologies for artificial intelligence. We really have hit a golden age here. And of course, this stuff is broader than just marketing, but it is finding its way to being embedded into the marketing organization very rapidly. David Robb, who's my favorite MarTech analyst out there, and I will mention is also going to be a featured speaker at the MarTech conference this spring. He put this machine intelligence for marketing landscape landscape together last year, and you can just see across the landscape all these different vendors who are using artificial intelligence, as part of, targeting audiences, developing content, optimizing conversion rates. This chart was, almost 12 months old. I guarantee you it has doubled or tripled at this point in time. The CMO Council I mentioned earlier, the report they studied of, senior marketers half split between APIs. Yeah, we get this, we know what they're good for, and oh my goodness, what's an API? Well, when they ask them about cognitive computing, which is another one of these labels that gets thrown around a lot for artificial intelligence, boy, the answers were all across the board, from people of like, I have no idea what this is going to do, or I am frightened it's going to steal my job, or wow, this is going to solve every problem I ever had. So the continuum of things that we're hoping or fearing out of AI is very, very large. But the truth is, a lot of artificial intelligence, in particular this set of artificial intelligence known as machine learning, there's actually not a tremendous amount of secret sauce to how machine learning works. Most of the algorithms that power machine learning, they were actually developed in academic circles. They've been widely published. They are not top secret. In fact, all of these major cloud platforms like Microsoft with Azure, Google with their cloud machine learning, Amazon with their machine learning, they all have these machine learning engines that anyone, can basically rent on demand, for pennies. So if you want to apply, the world's most sophisticated machine learning engine, towards a particular problem you have in mind, it's available for you on demand. You gotta love the cloud. Over an API, which gets back to that whole microservices thing. So where is the competition in artificial intelligence? The competition is actually less about the algorithms and really about the data that feeds these algorithms. That finally this is artificial intelligence is what makes big data truly valuable, because these machine learning algorithms are able to absorb that information and process it at a scale and really be able to distill out of that the patterns and relationships that power what we think of as AI behaviors. So to compete in an AI world, your number one mission really needs to be around your data. What is the unique set of data that you will own? Can you guarantee that it will have high quality, that the accuracy is good? Is it relevant to your business mission? If there's other data you're going to use from partners or third-party providers, understanding those relationships and the quality and accuracy of their data, this is where the game for the next 12 to 24 months is going to be played. Those who have the best data will have the best AI capabilities in marketing. Now, as we get beyond that, I want to leave you with a few things to ponder, because as artificial intelligence starts to take over more and more of the mundane grunt work, that we've had to do, certainly even in managing marketing technology, those of you who, steadily put together, say marketing automation campaigns, one by one, individually figuring out the rules. I'm sure you will be sad if, there was an AI algorithm that can actually, optimize those things for you, testing hundreds, even thousands of combinations to find the right one without you manually having to do it. And by the way, that technology exists, and I won't tell you who, but they will be one of the people speaking at MarTech too. So as we start to see AI eliminate some of this, mundane work, the exciting opportunity is this frees up our time as marketers to invest in other things. And the question we need to start to ask ourselves is what those other things will be. My theory is the highest value things marketers will be able to invest in is building out new services and products for their prospects and customers, to really embrace that digital transformation mission, to be able to leverage, those microservices architectures, to think about adding new utility to our audience in ways that the algorithms can't invent for us, but as we invent it, we can leverage those algorithms and those data to make those things incredibly effective. You know, as marketing starts to get more and more artificial intelligence engines powering it, it is really going to expand the scope of what marketing executes, right? I mean, in some ways, we've been limited by our, the capabilities of being human, right? You know, there's only so many different segments we can keep track of in our mind, so many different personas, you know, so many different, A/B tests in a particular campaign, and so those limits of what we've been able to keep in our own minds, has sort of put a ceiling on how sophisticated our marketing engines could be. But as we start to turn over some of those tasks to these machine learning, to these AI engines, those barriers are going to be removed. And although we won't have to, as humans necessarily, think about the complexity that's happening below the covers, the reality is these AI systems will allow marketing to achieve a level of sophistication that, quite frankly, it just blows away anything we've seen before. So as we look out over the next 12 to 24 months, this is going to be an incredibly breathtaking set of changes to the nature of marketing. So as AI proceeds, the technology will advance quickly. And again, if I'm just going to really emphasize one thing you can do today to get ready for this, it's really focus on getting your data house in order. So what connects all these things together? Digital transformation, these microservices, APIs, open source, vertical competition, digital everything, artificial intelligence. To me, when these all get woven together, what we're looking at for the next 12 to 24 months is an explosion of digital products and services that we as brands can offer our customers, really leveraging these platforms and APIs, that the greatest potential, in marketing is affecting customer experience through these new digital services and touch points. I kind of drew a little mind map of, how these things fit together, right? I mean, digital transformation is one of the things that motivates microservices. This explosion of all this vertical competition with internet service providers and new kinds of client interfaces. Again, we want more API access to those. Digital everything is, really driving that competition. Google Home came out to compete with Amazon Alexa. We will see where Apple Siri goes with this. Those two things are very exciting, how they play off of each other. These new digital touch points and digital everything are giving us an incredible new set of data for artificial intelligence. They also become interfaces where, using things like conversational computing, we can harness AI to provide better customer experiences. So all these pieces, they fit together into a vision of a new generation of customer experience capabilities that, to me, at the highest level, is a marketing mission. I put marketing in quotes because how much of it is the marketing department versus how much of it is a broader vision of marketing that encompasses the entire organization, that's going to depend on you and your particular organization. But marketing in the grandest sense is really headed for an incredible golden age. So if you found this interesting, I know I covered a lot of material in a very short period of time. Please consider coming to the MarTech conference. We'll go into these, in a lot more detail, a lot more ways of connecting the dots for these. So there'll be over 70 presentations, over 100 speakers, over 100 exhibitors who have solutions across this entire space. And remember, the early bird alpha rate expires next week, so if you want to save $400, register for MarTech by the end of next week. So I want to thank you for your time. Have a wonderful Valentine's Day, and I love MarTech.
Thank you so much, Scott. I'm going to jump in here. Audience, thank you for getting through this great wild ride with us, because unfortunately it is all the time we have for today. I know we usually try and save some time at the end of our webinars for Q&A, but Scott had so much great information to share that we decided to use the hour for his presentation. So I want to thank everybody for their participation. On behalf of Digital Marketing Depot and the MarTech Conference, I want to thank Scott Brinker and everyone in our audience for attending today. We look forward to seeing you next time right here at Digital Marketing Depot.